my guy. Like, there's a relationship.
Flat out and tough, and we call box, and we go to the end of the round, and then
that would say, what do you mean by acting black? That's a fair question, but a participant of trash talk knows.
And they're announcing a fight 3-4 months from now, and he ain't gonna fight. I bet you anything, he's not gonna fight somebody as good as John Ryder. And thanks to those joining us live and those that will join us on the archive, the style here. I'm being joined, of course, by Ringside Reporter's own Joe Habib. And check out the Roundtable next week on my channel, The Style Boxing. We have Dave from the Shoe Shine. We have Danny Glover, Fight Fan TV. Make sure you check out his content here on YouTube. We got Gail, of course, from nyfights.com. Again, that is nyfights.com. Make sure you visit the website. Check out their written content as well. And, of course, Base the Kid, the hardcore casual. Another one joining us over there from the UK. We got Danny from the UK, of course. Let's go ahead and get this one started. This is the 200th edition of the Round Table. Over 90 guest panelists, everything from podcasters, YouTubers, scribes, some boxers, promoters, matchmakers, managers, all types of people from the industry have joined us on these panels, and it's been a pleasure. 200 strong. That's over 1,200 topics. So there you go. So let's do 1,201 starting right now. First, let's start with Erislan de Lara. All right, he just had the old man, 40 years old. He's on a little bit of a streak. It's another stoppage in a very uneventful fight, in my opinion. Not a lot going on, but he was slowly, methodically picking Danny Garcia apart. Danny Garcia, his corners, stopped the fight when it kind of looked like he didn't want to continue. Where do you guys kind of see Erislan de Lara here? How would he do against the other title holders? So Joe Beeb, what say you?
I don't think he'd beat Janibek, but I do think he'd have a shot against Adames. I do think he'd have a shot against Adames. I think he's still a threat. I think he's still a sharpshooter. And they talked about it during the telecast, and there's a lot of fighters like him where he has the style that transcends well into the later years, because when the volume goes down a little bit and you move a little bit less, you rely on your timing and your accuracy with your shots. There's few fighters that can do that. If you throw in less, but you're landing at a high percentage, you're still effective. And Lara does have enough pop to get, fighters' attention. So I still think there's a little bit left in the tank, but I don't see him beating guys like Janibek. I don't see him beating guys like Shiraz, those types of guys. I think he'll have problems with, because he's not really a big middleweight either. But I still think he's a handful for most of the people in this division.
All right. Dave, how do you feel about Lara right now? Do you think at this point he should start reeling it in? Or do you give him a shot against the Shirazes of the world, all these other Adames, for example? Do you give him a shot against these guys?
Well, it's interesting. This was a catch weight at 157 pounds, and I think he missed a big opportunity post-fight to call out some big names. And the first name that comes to mind for me personally is Terrence Bud Crawford. Let's start thinking about cashing out and heading into retirement. And what better way to have a marquee legacy fight than to approach Terrence Bud Crawford and say, hey, listen, you're not too interested in fighting all these guys at 154. You didn't look that great against a young contender. I'm 41 years old. How about a shot at one more world title at 160? I don't like Lara against Shiraz. He's way too big. I don't favor him against Janibek. And as you know, D-Style, the No Limit was able to secure the purse bid on the Janibek fight. So that didn't even cost him that much. I don't know what would be in it for him financially to go take on Janibek, even if Janibek has 2 titles. The fight for me is for him to approach Terrence Bud Crawford and say, come on up to 160 if you can get this title. Canelo Alvarez might be more interested in taking on Terrence Bud Crawford should Terrence Bud Crawford be a newly crowned 160-pound champion. Now, it's not such a far stretch to be to 168 all of a sudden. And we could do a catch weight. I gave Danny Garcia the opportunity for a catch weight at 157. Terrence Bud Crawford, how'd you like to potentially be the next middleweight champion? Come fight me at 157. That's what I think he should do.
Danny, How do you feel about Lara right now, and how do you think he fares against the other middleweight champions?
I think Lara, he looked good on the weekend, and how he fares against the other champions. Janny Beck, it seems like he's going up to 168, so I don't think that fight can really happen. Adames, that would be a good fight, but you might favor Lara, because what it is, as Joe Habib says, with the Cubans, they're able to use their Cuban skills in their later years. If you go by guys like Luis Ortiz, Rigondeaux, as a couple examples, these guys, they're able to, even if though they're slowing up, and Lara, obviously his feet are slowed up, so he's become a bit more aggressive and sits down on his shots more. The Cuban skills and the schooling of it allows him to be able to fight into his more advanced years. I personally think Shiraz, the winner of Shiraz and Denny, will probably get him on a Riyadh season card. So it's best he tries to cash out on a Riyadh season card versus the winner of Hamza Shiraz versus Tyler Denny, or even a Terence Crawford, or even a Chris Eubank Jr., because I'm sure he will be looking for a title contention, because Lara at 41, nearly pushing 42 at the end of the month. He's going to be seen as the target to go for at 160. So there's a few guys will be looking to probably try and take him out. So it's best he goes for the highest bidder and tries to get on a Riyadh season, get that Saudi bag, and then retire after that.
Okay. Gail, Aries, Landy, Lara, like how do you see him right now at middleweight, and does he have a shot against some of these other guys?
The only reason we are having this discussion is the state of the middleweight division, which, to be charitable, we'll call it in transition, right?
Sure.
The reign of Canelo, Golovkin, all of the other guys, which made for a very vibrant, lively, competitive division with some great fights, is coming to an end. It is essentially at an end. We do have the up-and-coming fighters, the Shiraz crew coming in. Lara is just that bridge in between, that placeholder right now. His fight with Garcia was horrible. I hope we're talking about it first to get it out of the way, because it was so awful. By the time that fight got stopped, remind me, guys, when that fight got stopped. Was it after the 9th round, 10th round?
Eighth
round. In 8 rounds between two fighters, they landed 100 punches between them. That is horrific. Horrific. We have had fights where guys land that much between them in a round. So the only reason Lara is even in this discussion is because he's got that WBA belt and he can dangle it and entice it. But that's not enough for Crawford. Danny is exactly right. Thank goodness we have someone from across the pond to set our American lens straight in the right direction. There needs to be Saudi money. Lara needs to zero right in on it, offer himself up as a sacrifice to the, Riyadh season gods and say, hey, I'm willing to fight any of your guys, in and around middleweight. I'll be their opponent, and got this little trinket right here that'll make it worth the while if you make it worth my while. Go home, retire with a nice, big, paycheck for your trouble. He does have a little pop, but he's not active enough, and I don't think he'll be able to keep up with a younger fighter with more activity and more speed, even if the power is a potential counterbalance. They'll just need to be careful. That's the only kind of fight I would even want to see him in, because he is content to stink it up and get the win like he did last weekend. I'm not interested in seeing that again.
Yeah, well, that's for sure. That fight was a cure for insomnia. Base the kid, Eris Landy Lara, the 40-year-old Cuban, might be older, who knows, right? How do you assess him, and how do you think he fares against the other champions or even top contenders at 160 pounds at the moment?
I mean, look, in terms of champions, he's probably technically one of the most accomplished guys in that middleweight division. He's also the smallest champion in that division. Everyone else is bursting at the seams. He's slotting in quite comfortably. So in that sense, I see him being the lowest hanging fruit with, you know, the age. Although to be fair, look, he's fought twice this year. If he gets another one by say February, March time, that's actually pretty good activity for a 41-year-old turning 42. In terms of if he fights the rest of the champions, I would make him a favorite to lose, only because again they're just naturally bigger. They're not that much. They're not that dissimilar in you know, sort of, I guess, skill set. Although I would say he's probably the most skillful out of all of them. I agree with Danny and Gail. Look, I mean, the Riyadh bag is where it's at because it's no longer thank you Al Heyman. I don't think that's going to be bearing in much fruit moving forward. Get what you can get while the getting's good, as they say, because they literally kept you in limbo for a catchweight fight against Danny Garcia for over a year. Like, why would that be the most prevalent fight that you could have? Adames ain't gonna unify anytime soon. Janny Beck, who knows what's happening with him, and that's still top rank in PBC. Is that gonna happen without an intermediary? Probably not. So yeah, the next best thing is to, if you still got the skills, like, take on and beat one of these young, hungry guys to just, you know, because when their resume does better down the line, it just makes your win over them and your resume just look that much better. So that's kind of what I would say. And in terms of what I would push back on is, I don't think I can't really blame Lara for stinking up the joint in that fight. I think it was more Danny. Danny didn't engage. Lara was the one being the aggressor. And, you know, he did that all with a jab. As soon as he started employing the backhand, Danny didn't want no more. So you put him in there against someone who can actually come forward and not just try to throw a counter punch with a 7-inch reach disadvantage, then yeah, you may see a better performance from Lara in general.
Muted, sir.
Oh, my bad. Rookie mistake. So let's talk about the Crawford Berlanga fight, the aftermath of it. What did you think of Canelo's performance, number one? And second, does Berlanga stock go up or down, or is it just the same guy still to you after this performance? Let's start with you, Danny.
The Canelo performance, I thought it was a good performance. You have to bear in mind that Canelo is a 5'7" super middleweight, which is the same height as Roberto Duran when he was fighting middleweights and super middleweights and welterweights and light middleweights. Everyone was like, yeah, he's the greatest. Look how he's going up through all these weight classes, and look at, you know, he's so small and he's Fab Four. So the same has to be said about Canelo when he's gotten in the ring with a guy who weighed 193 pounds and in the past has got in the ring at 203 or something like that. Edgar's a big guy, and Canelo dealt with him and handled him. Once Canelo dropped him in the third round, Berlanga kind of went on, you know, retreat mode, survival mode, very on the back foot. I think his stock hasn't gone up or down. It's still the same. I still think when it's all said and done, he's going to be arguably the new greatest Mexican fighter of all time, overtaking Julio Cesar Chavez in many people's eyes, I believe. And what was there another question to it? Sorry.
Berlanga stock up or down?
Oh, sorry, Berlanga stock. I think that's gone up because I thought that he was going to get knocked out between 3 and 6. And his jab was the best I've ever seen it. Normally, you know, he's always been a bit of a hooker, but this time he was employing the jab, using some defensive responsibilities. So I think his stock has definitely gone up, being able to go 12 rounds with a first ballot Hall of Famer, and I think he'll just improve from there. And his stock's definitely gone up in New York. The New York and the Puerto Rican fan base is definitely going to grow. And yeah, a lot more people have got a lot more respect for him rather than seeing him as just a hype job.
All right. And to the chat, let us know, stock of Berlanga up or down. Let us know what you guys think. Dave, stock up or down for Berlanga, and what did you think of Canelo's performance in the fight?
Okay, I'm going to argue his stock absolutely climbed. Prior to this, including because the bar was set so low and the expectations were so low, I myself included actually thought that Canelo was going to finally break that the streak where he hadn't knocked anybody out in multiple fights since Caleb Plant. I thought he was going to finally do that with Edgar Berlanga. And Edgar Berlanga exceeded those expectations. Not only did he make the final round, but he fought very well in spurts and showed that he was able to mark up Canelo's face. Even though he seemingly lost every single round, you never had the sense that Canelo was completely comfortable, that there wasn't danger in front of him. You still got the sense that Edgar Berlanga was dangerous in just about every round. Now that knockdown that in most cases would have been in lights out, end of the fight type dropping that he's succumbed to, that would have dropped just about anybody that was at sea level or below in that weight class. But Edgar Berlanga took that shot, that left hook, like a champ, and it was just a flash knockdown. He wasn't seriously injured. That in itself said a lot to me. It said, again, Canelo does not have the power he once had in the fights he did, like Caleb Plant, BJ Saunders, Kovalev. That power is starting to diminish. A lot of people are starting to come to grips that we've seen the best of Canelo, and now these B-level fighters, and I didn't even think Berlanga was a B-level fighter. I thought he was a C-level fighter. But the B-level guys at 168, the Mungias, the Caleb Plants, all these type of guys are potentially guys that are going to go the distance against Canelo. In fact, he probably maybe can't even get Mbili out of there at this point in his career. But what he did solidify, Canelo did in this performance, is that he's still the face of boxing. He is the king of boxing still. And the dates that are very important to Mexicans, Cinco de Mayo and Mexican Independence Day. He went toe-to-toe against Dana White in the UFC and came out victorious. Those dates are his. And you have to give second thoughts to putting on a show against Canelo Alvarez May 5th or Mexican Independence Day. He's the face of boxing, whether you like it or not, for the next until he declines even further, until he takes a beating. He is the face of boxing, and those dates are his. Now, for Berlanga, his stock absolutely rose. And I see him as a guy now who, theoretically or conceivably, I could see him as a top 5 super middleweight in very competitive fights against the likes of Jaime Munguia, Caleb Plant, Christian Mbili. Now I think he's game. He's definitely going to come away from this with some more knowledge, just like Canelo did with Floyd Mayweather. He may win some of those. He may lose all of them. I don't know. That's going to be what I do think. He's comfortably going to be the type of fighter now that gets guys like McCumbee that we saw Caleb Plant come back and rally. He's the type of fighter that's going to get those guys out of there consistently. And I'm excited to see where Edgar Berlanga's career goes. I just want to add one last thing. Edgar Berlanga did everything right that I wanted to see out of a Puerto Rican fighter on a Mexican Independence Day weekend. He came into press week on Tuesday, and he said all the right things that are going to gain him fans against the Mexican Americans and the Mexican community. He said all the right things, guys. He constantly praised the community. He said he loved his haters. He loves Mexican people. And I'll tell you what, the next time Edgar Berlanga fights, whether it's in New York or Puerto Rico, I'm positive a lot of Mexicans are going to be tuned in to see how he does, because he made fans of him last Saturday.
All right. Champy with a $2 super chat. We appreciate it. Top 5 pound for pound. 1 Usyk, 2 Canelo, 3 Inoue, 4 Bivol, 5 Beterbiev. All right. Well, there you go. All right. Thanks for the support. Much appreciated. Gail, how do you stock for Berlanga, up or down? And do you what did you make of Canelo's performance?
Part of stock going up or down is expectations, as rightly said earlier. Absolutely went up for me. Absolutely went up. You know, he gave his best effort. Was it good enough? No. But it reminds me of when a very young Canelo Alvarez faced Floyd Mayweather, got blown out. Let us all remember. And learned a hell of a lot. It completely transformed his career. It put the accelerator down for him. He learned not only what to do inside the ring from Floyd, he learned a lot what to do outside the ring. It's really not a surprise that it wasn't too many years after that fight. We started hearing from him more in English. He started understanding what he needed to do in his performance outside the ring. And as rightly said, he was in it fight week. He was great with the media. I love Salty Canelo in English. It turns out he's a pretty damn funny dude, right? We all love it. We love it. We eat it up. as members of the media. There's so much now to work with. You know, Berlanga was there, but who really remembers what Berlanga said other than some routine trash talk, right? But I did like how Berlanga was properly humble, respectful after that final bell. He got it. You know what? I like the fact that I could see that he got it. That's going to really serve him well. And we're more excited now to see matchups with Berlanga after the fight, after a loss, than we were before. Who wouldn't want to see him face the winner of tomorrow night's fight between Munguia and Bazinian, right? I'd be up for that in a second. There are plenty of other opponents that have been named for him. You know, he's in great shape. Has Canelo lost a step? Well, Canelo on his worst day currently, or Canelo slipping, is still better than 90% of the performers out there. That's the same thing that was said about Naoya Inoue's last fight. You know, Inoue's worst day is most guys' best day. And turning out a sellout crowd, if you believe the gate numbers and the pay-per-view numbers, if they're even close, they were phenomenal. Phenomenal. And part of it was the matchup with the holiday, Mexican Independence Day, and Vegas has taken that over. It is party time in Vegas on Mexican Independence Day weekend, and the whole city has leaned into it. So it's quite a phenomenon. But he still got it. And we're going to need to be talking on this show in the next 200 episodes, but certainly the next couple dozen. Who replaces Canelo as the face of boxing? Don't tell me anyone else is the face of boxing right now, at least maybe outside the heavyweight division. I'll grant you that. Who's going to replace him when he does decide he wants to join the Live Golf Tour or whatever the hell he wants to do, run his businesses? I mean, Canelo's got the world by a string right now, and you know what? He earned it.
Absolutely. That's the thing. Base up or down in stock for Berlanga, and what did you make of Canelo's performance?
Well, I see things a little bit different to everyone else on the panel. In terms of Edgar Berlanga, personally, I think his stock is where it was anyway. The only difference or the only credit I give him is the fact that he didn't get knocked out. But again, if he's weighing in the following day close to 200 pounds, in theory, he should be able to take a shot from a guy that, you know, started his career at 140/147. I didn't have him. I think I just about was gracious enough to maybe give him one round in the fight. So of all of Canelo's most recent opponents, John Ryder, even Jamel Charlo to a lesser extent, Caleb Plant, yeah, Billy Joe Saunders, all these guys, I think he won the least amount of rounds out of everyone. And he was the biggest guy. he was the biggest, supposedly the strongest guy out of all of them. To me, yeah, I don't see his stock going up or down. I think the only thing he may actually get a benefit from is the fact that because he went the distance, he can parlay that into another big fight. I said previously on my channel regarding this fight, I did an interview with Alex Krasiuk at one point, and he basically said this was before Usyk fought Daniel Dubois, and he said that in this fight, yeah, his exact words were Daniel Dubois will experience severe beatings, but those beatings will be the making of him, and the experience he gains from that will show him good in the future. I see a similar thing here with Berlanga if he's actually going to apply himself properly to the sport, and if he's going to stop trying to cut corners and trying to do the Ryan Garcia looking for the biggest and best fights too early before you're actually like ready for them. If he actually goes back to proper level and starts grafting and, you know, getting better and better and staying at an appropriate level, then I can see the makings of a potential superstar down the line. But if he carries on the way he has been carrying on, then it's just going to be a flash in the pan, and it's going to be a literal 15 minutes of fame, in my opinion. In terms of Canelo, I mean, yeah, there's a little bit of slippage. He's 34, and he's been boxing since he was 15. It's only right that it's going to happen. He's literally had 66 fights now as a pro, and he's had a few amateurs when he was younger as well. So, yes, there's a lot there. But he's still leagues ahead of the majority of these guys, and it's actually even more compacted on how much better than these guys he is when you consider just how much smaller he is than these guys, because he's beaten the majority of them with his skill set. He's not overpowering them. He's not bigger, dominating them that way. He's beating them because he's just naturally better. And he's doing that tactical thing of going after all of the young guys, maybe before they're ready, but you go after all of them now. So that secures your legacy even more if they do something spectacular or significant in their career further down the line. I'd like to see him obviously step up his level of competition, adjust for him. But outside of that, I mean, look, Canelo's the guy. He deserves to do what he wants to do within reason. And I'm still here for it. I didn't purchase that event. It should never have been a pay-per-view over here in the first place. But I particularly protested against it, and I'll be honest, I hoped it didn't do that well, so that he would be forced to have to fight someone that the public wanted to see down the line. But 650,000 from what I've heard, he's got carte blanche to do pretty much whatever he wants to do moving forward. So Viva Mexico, cabrones.
Yeah, there you go. 650,000 is the reports. We'll see what. We never know the official, I guess, whatever that means. But what I will say is I do believe the numbers. That's number one. But second, Dana White has already gave up laws, right? He's saying that we're going to Mexico next year. We're looking into Arizona. Where he ain't gonna, he already knows I ain't gonna Vegas no more. I think I'm sure it was whatever you define as success. I don't know, but I think they lost their ass with the Sphere. They spent a lot of money in the Sphere. And so I don't know if they made money, and I think he doesn't want to do that again. He's not in the business of losing money. I'll just say that. Really quick, JXV88 Canelo is 5'6", started at 140, and is expected to KO guys that weigh 200 pounds. Laughing emoji, ridiculous. Yet y'all praise Berlanga, who barely did better than Charlo. All right. Well, there you go. Thanks for the support, brother.
People keep subtracting inches from Canelo's height, man. What's going on there? He's 5'8". He went from 5'8" to 5'7" to 5'6". Before the show's over, he's going to be 5'3".
Yeah.
Orlando went from 185 to 202. You notice that?
Yeah. Memo Heredia said that Berlanga weighed 185. I don't know how true it is, but people are saying 200, 195.
He looked big in the ring. He did look big.
Yeah, he did look big.
Yeah.
By the way, we got 62 people watching here on Ringside Report. Make sure you hit the like button.
Nice.
That'll be much appreciated. Thank you for the chat watching as well, and all that good stuff. Shout out to everybody from the Shoe Shine channel as well. Joe B. So, what did you make of Canelo's performance? And you can have your "I told you so" moment if you want. I mean, it's up to you. But and of course, to you, Berlanga, stock up, down, same. How do you see it?
Berlanga's stock definitely went up. I think he was a showman in the ring too, because the way he was kind of playing to the crowd, talking a little bit. As Danny said, the jab was pretty good. It's hard when you're in there with a sharp counterpuncher like Canelo to try to follow up behind the jab, because you can easily get countered with the left hook too, if you try to follow up with the right hand. So, just like we talked about with Lara, how things change when you get older. Hopkins changed up his style a little bit, and certain fighters can do that if they're accurate, precise, sharpshooter type fighters. And so sometimes more can be less. If you're still landing at that high percentage, then it doesn't matter. And Canelo does hit hard enough to get fighters' attention, where when he does connect, they have second thoughts about coming in and being aggressive with them. So he was never a volume guy, but again, he's a little bit more economic with the shots. He's kind of still coming forward, but he's just pot shot and throwing one shot at a time, but he's still winning every round. So sometimes, less is more. And in this case, it has been for Canelo. So I had the fight 11 rounds to 1. So I think fighting this way, being as accurate and having the timing, if you still have the timing, you have, the accuracy, you still have, the punch selection, you have the ring instincts in there. I still think fighting this way, he'll beat a lot of guys, and it'll add years to his career. And if you don't push the pace on him, then he's not going to really push the pace on you. So he'll keep fighting at this methodical pace unless you force him to do otherwise. And if you're concerned about being countered, if you're his opponent, then you probably won't push the pace, right? Because again, this guy is a sharpshooter. So I think Canelo will still have some good fights left in him. Probably about 4 or 5 fights left in him before it's all said and done. And I think he'll ride off into the sunset, walk into the Hall of Fame.
All right. Oh, that's he's walking in for sure, front door and everything. Staying on the Canelo topic, I don't know if you guys know, but Kendrick Lamar called out Canelo. But shout out to the UFC who confused them for Kendrick Lamar, and Dana White's response was, well, he does kind of look like Kendrick Lamar. But either way, Crawford along with Turkey. Crawford was at the Canelo fight, and the UFC event. The last 2 fights are still after the Canelo fight, so the Sphere is not that far from the MGM or T-Mobile. So he went over there. He sat right next to Turki Al-Sheikh. No word if they held hands or not, but they were right there. At the front row or Cade side. Feels weird saying Cade side, but either way, they're right there. And he called out Canelo. Do you think this fight will happen? And whether you believe it happens or not, is it something you want to see? Let's start with you, Base. Yeah, I'm mute.
I actually think it will happen, if I'm honest. I think the money involved in it is too much to overlook at this point. I mean, look, Canelo can make money with anyone hand over fist, but I think prior to the Madrimov fight, the whole thing was, oh well, if I win, I won't get any credit, etc., etc. Well, you didn't get any credit for Berlanga, because everyone knew that was a foregone conclusion, and there's not really anyone outside of maybe David Benavidez or Dimitri Bivol again that anyone has any inklings that you may falter against. Whether that's right or wrong, that's the public perception, that's the narrative that's been created. So if you're not having those fights next, then the only other fight you can realistically take for big money, especially bigger than what you're used to earning right now, is a Crawford fight. Plus that fight brings in 2 separate demographics. It might get a bit toxic. It's definitely going to get hella tribalistic, but it's going to be hella engagement as well. And if Crawford is as easy work as you believe, especially after that Madrimov fight, and say, well, he saw that there's weight classes for a reason, but he's still calling you up. If it's an easy payday, take the easy payday, because it's going to be the most amount of money you can make at this point in your career. There's no other fight that's going to pay you more, because no other bodies in this sport or even any cross-promotional sports have the kind of money available to them that the Saudi the General Entertainment Fund, General Entertainment Authority has at their disposal. So yeah, if it's a quick snatch and grab and that's how you believe it to be, go for it. That's what I would say.
All right, okay. Gail, do you believe that fight will happen? And whether it does or doesn't, is it something you want to see?
That fight will only happen if Canelo Alvarez wants it to happen. And it's going to go way beyond the money. One of the critical issues will be whether he wants to do business with Turkey and the Saudi General Entertainment Authority. Right now, although they apparently have some détente, he's made it very clear that he's not interested. And I don't think that is a businessman playing negotiation games. I really don't. Canelo just proved this weekend how much he can draw, how big a paycheck he can get without having to go through dealing with that kind of a negotiation, everything that surrounds it. He doesn't need the money. The man has more money than his grandchildren could spend in their lifetimes. And he knows it. He is in boxing right now because he enjoys it. He's still young enough. He doesn't need to retire. I really think for Canelo, a lot of it is about his life, his lifestyle, and living it the way he wants to. I think he is far more interested in a rematch with Bivol. I think he would concede more to get a fight against Bivol than he would against Crawford. And we're going to know in a little less than a month who wins that the light heavyweight unification fight. And that is going to change the narrative or solidify the narrative, one way or the other. We're going to know a lot more. If Bivol wins and he is the undisputed light heavyweight champion of the world, and he could possibly fight the super middleweight undisputed champion of the world, we all know that other belt's floating around out there. We don't care about that. That's intriguing. Do I think Canelo can beat him? No, I don't. And Bivol can easily make 168. Wouldn't that be something? He sets his light heavyweight belts aside and says, I want to fight for your belts. Now, that would also need some big financing. And again, we have the ringer of, does Canelo want to play with the Saudis? It's hard to say. Somebody in the chat just mentioned that Plant wants a rematch with him. After Plant's fight this weekend, Plant has really developed an interesting fan base. It's way bigger than he had before he had the loss to Canelo. That intrigues me, I've got to say, for a lot of reasons, and it's a lot easier to make. We know that there's certainly plenty of money there. I mean, maybe it is not the 3-figure million, money, but I don't think Canelo cares. I honestly don't. So it's going to be about something more than money. And I do agree with him that he won't get credit for beating Crawford if he does, because everyone's going to say, Crawford has lost a step. Oh, look how he performed against Madrimov. Yeah, he's too small. I agree. Crawford should go try to take that belt off Lara.
All right. Okay. Dave, do you believe we're going to get that fight? And is it something you want to see?
Yeah, it's real interesting that Gail pointed out that Plant's fan base has increased. We saw at Riyadh season in Los Angeles that when he was confronted by a fighter, Latino fans rushed to the help and assist to take on the fight for Caleb Plant. Caleb Plant's absolutely grown his fan base after the Canelo Alvarez fight. Something that I think that Edgar Berlanga is going to be is going to happen to Edgar Berlanga as well. And that's something that Crawford could take a note from. He probably should have been focused on growing and expanding his fan base as well. That fan base that would have put that pressure on Canelo Alvarez. Now, Canelo Alvarez historically is given the same opportunity to fighters 2 weight classes below. He did it a long time ago against Amir Khan, who most of us thought had no shot with his chin to go up 2 weight classes. But he gave that guy an opportunity. He gave Charlo, the undisputed 154-pound champion, the same exact opportunity. But why not Crawford? Why is suddenly Crawford too small? And this is where I think Crawford is failing to change the narrative. Unfortunately for him, he's going to have to do something major. He's going to have to either clean out the 154-pound division. That means taking on Fundora, someone who's been knocked out by Brian Mendoza. Entirely winnable fight. Also entirely winnable for the Towering Inferno. Who knows? He struggled against Madrimov. And I think that didn't help his argument that he's ready to fight Canelo. He's going to have to do something massive, either clean out 154, move up another weight class and negotiate something with Lara and become the middleweight champion. And now suddenly he's not too small. As for Canelo, something that he could do that I think is wild is take a page from his old book where he used to fight at catchweights. If Crawford is really that easy work, then why not do something like Lara just did, which was award Danny Garcia 3 pounds. Say, hey, he's so easy work. You know what? I'll lose an extra 3 pounds. I'll fight Crawford for $150 million at 165 pounds. I'll handicap myself and still beat him. And then he'll give me full credit. It's a fight. It's a fight that I think for the history books, it has to happen. We need to know who the top fighter of this generation was. Is it Crawford? Is it Canelo? I think for the books, we need to know. We need to see this fight happen, even if Canelo Alvarez has to handicap himself and say, I'll give you 3 pounds and I'll still beat you. That's what I think.
Right. Joe Habib, do you believe this fight happens? And do you want to see it happen?
I don't think it happens. I think Canelo is going to fight Chris Eubank Jr. next. That's what I think the next fight for Canelo is going to be. I think when you really look at the Charlo situation, Charlo was a big junior middleweight, 6 feet, tall, long. Crawford's is an average size junior middleweight. Maybe some people would say he's a small junior middleweight, right?
5'5".
That's number one. Yeah, 5'5", right? That's number one. And number two, Gail said this and Canelo said this. A lot of people said this. He's got nothing to gain by this, right? And is there really such a thing as a bad payday for Canelo? He's going to make a lot of money no matter who he fights anyway. So I don't know how much that Crawford fight would bring. I don't know how much Turkey a la Sheikh would offer for that. I mean, again, it's a no-win situation for Canelo. It really is, in my opinion. And I think they're looking at it the same way. I would assume they're looking at it the same way I'm looking at it. So I just don't see the upside for Canelo to fight Crawford. There's no upside. There's really no upside, in my opinion. So I don't think it happens. And I think like I said, the Eubank Jr. fight will happen next. And maybe down the road, if Bivol does win, that fight will still be out there. I think Canelo would take that fight.
Okay. Danny, are you excited about, maybe seeing Canelo with it in the UK? But do you want to see the Crawford fight? Do you think it happens?
I would like to see the fight. Do I think it happens? Only if, the money's right, I imagine, because Canelo's made a few excuses. But once again, we go to the annals of history. Rigondeaux jumped up 2 weights to fight Lomachenko. He wasn't too small. Historically, Roberto Duran, a former blown-up lightweight, fought Marvin Hagler. Marvin Hagler didn't get any stick for winning a points decision over Roberto Duran. He gets heralded still, and he's, oh yeah, he beat Duran, who's a small lightweight. So I don't see the problem with Terence Crawford, who won the fight of the century in beating Errol Spence. And then now he's gone up to junior middleweight and beat Madrimov, who was meant to be seen as the smaller new Golovkin. So yeah, I don't see what the problem is. And it's not like Canelo. If this was David Benavidez fighting Terence Crawford, then it'd be like, oh, come on now, you're picking on like a really small guy. But Canelo is a guy who started off at 140 himself. His main sort of weights was 154, 160 was where he was best at. Even as we say, at 168, he's a small man fighting bigger guys all the time. So him fighting a guy who we know has the skills, and Terence Crawford, I think, would do a much better job and would be a lot more positive in his approach in the ring than Charlo was against Canelo. I don't see a problem with that fight happening, but maybe Canelo sees something in the skill set. He might not like where he feels it's a lose-lose. But if Canelo beats Terence Crawford, people would give Canelo credit. He's, remember, in boxing years, Canelo is an old man. He's been doing this 19 years as a professional now. He's probably going to fight 4 more times, get to that 70 mark and sail off into the sunset. You haven't really got that many options of fighters to fight now. It's not like we know Benavidez has gone up to 175 now, so you're literally running out of options. So you're going to have to get guys from somewhere. So why not get marquee names and just just do it, really. Just get your price, be happy with your fee, and then take the fight.
All right. Look, I'll be honest. The fight doesn't do much for me personally. I wouldn't be against it. Like, if they do it, great. And I'll admit it would be a big event. I do think that that's a fight easily gets over 1 million buys. I think it's a huge event. I think it does it probably beats out the Triple G gate. So I'm not arguing that it wouldn't be a big event, and if people want to see it, I'm not against it either. But the reality is, like, Terence Crawford had no interest in this fight if the Turkey Al-Sheikh, started egging him on, right? I saw an interview where Opetaya was talking about how Turkey was asking him, like, would you like to fight Canelo? I mean, I don't know. This guy has some weird casual ass like ideas, and I guess they're like fantasy fights of his, but he wants to, like, it's like these boxers are his like figures, and he wants to play with them. Like little kids play with GI Joes. That's what he's doing. You know what I mean? And I'm looking at it, I'm like, no, the little GI Joe doesn't fight that big other action figure. They don't go. Like, what are you doing? All right, put that down, Turkey. Right, and then everyone, it's like he wants to create this movie or something. Like he's like the star of the show, and Crawford's just like that like his main protagonist, and he wants everyone to just line up for Crawford at 154. Hey, Zoo, wait for us in February maybe, and you, we're gonna do a fight with you next, and he gets angry when people don't want to cooperate. You know what I mean? I don't know. The whole thing is weird to me, but if the fight happens, great. I'm not against it, right? But me personally, I would like to see a rematch with Bivol. I think that's a fight that I actually do think Canelo could win. It wouldn't be easy, but I think that's a possibility. And I would, or Benavidez fight. Those are still the fights that I'm hoping for, right? Over the Crawford fight, if I'm honest, from my personal vantage point. All right. That's just how I feel about that. Let's go ahead and proceed. Impromptu question here. I don't know if you guys saw Dana White came out and said, I've been dipping my toe in the water, but I've never really committed. But you guys know me. When I say I'm committed, I'm committed. So he says he's in. And he's got a major announcement coming out soon, right? In regards to, boxing. Gail, are you excited and different, or would you rather have Dana out of the sport? Like, how do you feel about Dana being involved in the sport of boxing?
Well, if we compare Dana White to Turkey Al-Sheikh, I would rather do business with Dana White. At least he's governed by the laws of the United States. He's the devil we know, right? And we know what Dana's motives are. They're very plain. It's money. And control, I would say, is a close second, but money, right? If he thinks he could make money, he's all about it. Compared to the current boxing landscape, I mean, we all know boxing has its problems as a business, as a sport. We can't fix it. We can't kill it. It's the famous line, right? I don't know that Dana White's going to fix a damn thing. What I'll also say about Dana is he's a hell of a showman of a promoter. I mean, he built the UFC out of thin air, truly. And so when he says he's got a major announcement, I sort of talked about expectations earlier. I temper my expectations. I mean, when's this announcement? What's it about now? He does have a fighter he is backing in boxing, Callum Walsh, fighting in Dublin, Ireland tomorrow, I believe is the card, tomorrow night in the United States, or tomorrow afternoon, we'll see it, right? Are we going to hear something then? Has he got some future deal going on? I don't know. With Dana, I got to hear it. I got to see it happen. Trust but verify is my attitude for Dana White. But I will say I'm always willing to listen to him.
All right. I was wondering, Dana actually, I guess, funded for Welsh to fight in Ireland.
He's a big believer in Walsh. He's got a very nice arrangement and a good working arrangement with Tom Loeffler of 360 Promotions, who seems to be will to work with anybody because he's just such a laid back dude. Maybe he thinks that's his foot in the door, through the backing of UFC Fight Pass. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Base, what do you make of Dana White? He's going to give a big announcement. I don't know what it is, but he's going to be involved in boxing.
Okay, so full disclosure, I don't actually know much about this. I haven't heard much about this. So just as a general take, I don't know. I mean, Dana White is the same as Simon Jordan. They've been talking about getting into boxing for the last several years, and thus far nothing is there except just talk and conjecture and loads of strenuous words that actually don't mean anything just to elongate a sentence. If he comes in, hey, good luck to him. I mean, it's another player. It's another dirty hand in the dirty sport. But if I don't know. I have a feeling like Dana White getting into boxing, he's seen all the pitfalls. So you would think he's smart enough to not make the same mistakes as everyone else, but everyone seems to come in and make the exact same mistakes. 50 Cent made those mistakes when he jumped in, thinking he had Floyd Mayweather, who knew the game inside out. Like Eddie Hearn, crushing it over here, came and made the same mistakes in the US. Al Heyman made those mistakes. The only probably didn't and would have been Bob, and that's only because Bob was in an era when those mistakes weren't as prevalent, because it was just after the sort of the mafia era and whatnot. So if he comes in, good luck to him. But I don't know how many of the top quality talent will sign with him. So he's gonna have a long barrier to entry, because he's gonna have to build up a lot of stars from scratch. And does he want to do that, knowing that he can't control the boxing game the same way as the UFC? Because bear in mind, the UFC is not MMA. And that's just one company, but he did such a good branding on it. That's what people just think MMA is when they hear UFC. So if he can do something like that and maybe have his own separate niche part of boxing, similar to maybe, I guess, what Misfits are doing, but just a more professional outfit and a more, just isolated, almost like PBC Island for himself, good luck. But outside of that, I just don't really see it being that successful.
All right, Joe Beeb, what do you make of Dana White? Just for the record, none of us know what he meant. What I'm saying is all he said. I'm going to be involved in the sport of boxing, and he's going to make a big announcement soon. What do you make of it, Beeb?
One interesting thing he did say, this is kind of going to speak to Base's statement he just made. He said, I've never committed to coming in. I said that I would consider it, but this time I'm actually making the commitment. And anytime I've said I'm going to do something, I do it. And the guy does have a good track record. So he's an excellent businessman. He does have, multiple companies that he deals with. And the one thing about him too is he works with other people. There's a lot of people. There's not too many people in combat sports or in business in general that say too many bad things about Dana White, because he's a smart guy. So I don't think he could hurt the sport, right? Lou DiBella once told me, he said, but no one does anything to boxing. Boxing does it to itself. So you can't really hurt the sport. It is what it is, right? So I find it intriguing. And I'm wondering if the big surprise was going to be something like Canelo versus McGregor in one of those big crossover fights. I hope not. But I heard they asked Canelo if he would fight McGregor, and the first time they asked him, he said, "Yeah, when I retire, I could do exhibition fights." And then they asked him recently again, and he just said, "Yeah, why not?" So he didn't say, "I have to retire first before I would do it." So who knows? So I couldn't even begin to tell you what that surprise is. But I think a lot of the fighters and a lot of the promoters, like Eddie Hearn, likes Dana. He considers Dana a mentor. So I think a lot of people in the sport would take to Dana well. I don't think he would cause any disruption. So I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah, what I'm thinking is, I believe anyway, he's gonna kind of like he's working with Walsh right now. I think he's gonna be working with fighters, right? And
yeah, he started off as a manager in the UFC, so he kind of does understand that lane too. So
yeah, so when
manager in MMA, I meant to say, not UFC.
When they asked him, about like the Walsh thing with the way he worded it was, well, I'm basically like his HBO, and that's what I'm doing with him in Ireland.
He's the showrunner. It's UFC Fight Pass is the showrunner. Now, remember, everybody, what we have forgotten is Dana's last big venture is Power Slap. So Bear that in mind.
Yeah, no.
It's doing well.
I don't know. I have no idea, to be honest.
It's
It's not
doing
my
well.
thing. I'll tell you.
Yeah, it's doing well. It's getting a lot of attention.
Well, we're going to set up Danny against Base in a power slap, for the UK title at some point.
Take it easy. Take it easy, please.
But hey, Danny, what do you make about Dana saying he's going to make a big announcement soon?
Well, I really hope it's not a Canelo versus McGregor, because McGregor's last fight was years ago against Chandler, and that he didn't win, so he lost. So if Canelo takes that fight, then everyone's going to get onto him and say, "Oh, hold on, are you telling me that fighting McGregor's a better win and better decision, and less and is more advantageous than fighting someone like Terence Crawford?" But what I think it is, well, I don't know what it is, but what I'm presuming he might mean is that he might be looking to sign boxers to maybe come over to his UFC or get boxing shows, do boxing shows or something, because you have to remember he's done a deal with he's got that WWE contract thing where he has to supply 3 times more fights on the network or something like that. So he had 500 fighters and now he's got 1,000 UFC fighters, and now you're starting to see that the reason why the UFC quality of fights, especially on the undercards and even the main events, is not as good is because you're having like regional level style fights now. You're not even getting world-class MMA fights. So he's now probably going to have to go into boxing to try and get even more fighters, probably some better quality names to try and subsidize the money that he's getting for his UFC company and the WWE merge type thing. But that's what I think he's probably in a desperate position, because for a while with UFC, they was reloading the dryer a lot, same old fights, same rematches. And, we've seen him just lose to Canelo on the weekend. So he's going to need to do something, because right now people are talking about, oh, boxing's dying, UFC is the way, MMA is the way, I prefer it. Look at it. I've been screaming this for ages. It's not. Boxing is thriving. It's always going to be here. Boxing's going to finish. No, it's not. UFC looks like it's going down the slammer right now. So he's having to do these other, branch off things like power slapping and WWE and all these theatrics. And now he wants to come into boxing. He knows this is where the party's at.
Okay. All right. Dave, what do you make of it? Dana White has a big announcement. What do you think his involvement's going to be?
But B brought up something interesting regarding the Conor McGregor situation. I did read a couple of weeks back that Canelo was entertaining a so-called easy fight in Japan to introduce himself to the Japanese fan base in person. And that struck a chord with me, because it completely makes sense to approach something like a Conor McGregor, showcase fight. It truly will be a showcase fight, exhibition, whatever you want to call it. But it was wildly successful with Mayweather, financially. It's not a threat. So I'm not surprised one bit. Will Dana White be more successful than Oscar De La Hoya when Oscar De La Hoya entered the world of MMA? I think he will be 100%. I also see the opportunity for Dana White's fighters, most popular fighters who have some type of a boxing background, like Alex Pereira, of potentially launching a kind of a semi-pro boxing career at the same time that some of the big stars like Pereira, maybe fighting up and working his way up into a potential Jake Paul fight, or maybe against some legitimate cruiserweights. So I can see Dana White having some success, and I also see that Canelo Alvarez is probably not going to be working with Al Heyman, too much longer. And as Canelo Alvarez's career kind of fades away towards the end of his career, he might entertain these kind of fights, the ones that we just talked about, the Conor McGregor or the Pereira fights against former UFC stars. So I think I welcome Dana White to it, and I'd like to see what he's going to do, because I think he's going to bring an interesting dynamic to the sport of boxing.
Absolutely. Let's go ahead and proceed here. We got some fights to talk about. First, tomorrow, Friday, we're going to have Jaime Munguia returning after his loss to Saul Canelo Alvarez. It's going to be on here in the States, and it's going to be on ESPN. It's going to be against Eric Bazinian. I think I'm pronouncing it right. Okay. So what are you expecting from Munguia, B? And any chance of an upset in your opinion?
I was checking out Bazinian this afternoon. Tall guy, long guy, likes to fight on the outside. One thing I did notice though, when he throws his jab, he kind of reaches with it, leans in a little bit, but he does throw straight punches. But Munguia is a guy that kind of loops a little bit, and one of Munguia's really good punches is he throws those 45s, those half hook, half uppercuts. So if Bazinian's leaning in, then he could catch him in one of those. I think it's an interesting fight. I think it'll be action packed. I do see Munguia though catching Bazinian, like leaning in a little bit, and I think he'll hurt him with one of those uppercuts, and I think that will be the beginning of the end for him. And I do see Munguia stopping him probably around 8 or 9 rounds, but I think it'll be fun while it lasts.
Okay. Dave, what are you expecting from Munguia? And how do you think he'll bounce back after his loss to Canelo?
Well, I hope Munguia is focused on the right things. Did he just change trainers again? Eric Bazinian is a dangerous fighter. He can throw a lot of punches. He can mix it up, but the level of competition he's had in Canada is kind of been like the Mexican guys he's fought have 10, 11, 12 losses. He has a couple of big wins on his record, but he does have the novelty of being like a Christian and Billy sparring partner. He's with Eye of the Tiger Promotions, and typically Eye of the Tiger, they build their prospects really, really well. So I'm counting on Eric Bazinian being ready, even though his last fight, I think he went into it sick. Is Jaime Munguia going to take this guy lightly? That's my concern. If he takes him lightly, we could have some, like, you guys remember Hogan, like that, how close that fight was? This is that kind of fight that if he did not have this training camp properly, he could end up having a hard night's work for him this coming Friday night. If he did all the preparation plus, the experience he just had with Canelo Alvarez, then like Beeb said, he should get this guy out of there because he's got a lot of flaws and he's never fought someone of Jaime Munguia's caliber. So it's either going to be a rough night for Jaime or Jaime's going to come away like he should, victorious with a late stoppage.
All right. And yes, people point out, and yeah, he is in fact training with Eric El Terrible Morales. Danny, what are you expecting from Jaime Munguia coming off his loss to Canelo?
I'm expecting a good performance with Eric Bazinian. The good thing for Munguia, Bazinian, he likes to come to sort of fight and seems to come forward fighter. So that suits someone like Munguia. He likes someone who's going to stand and trade with him because he's a tough guy. And I think Munguia is he's going to be the tougher guy, and probably I don't know if he'll stop Bazinian, but he'll definitely win. He'll definitely win the exchanges and be overall the more dominant inside fighter. So, but it's going to be exciting. You can get a telephone box over, as we say in the UK, or a phone booth, as you guys say in the USA. And I think it's going to be a nice, exciting fight. Both guys trading up close, but I think Munguia is going to get the W.
Right. Base, he's now with Top Rank, left Golden Boy, but he did, by the way, just letting everyone know, he did say he's still in good standing with Golden Boy in a recent interview. But here is Top Rank debut, lost after his fight with Canelo. What are you expecting from Jaime Munguia?
Well, that just makes Oscar De La Hoya look even more incompetent, because didn't he tweet out saying it was only a 1-fight deal, and he's coming straight back. But look, Jaime, I think ultimately he's now made the right choice for him. If we look at the career, it's very clear to see that when you are on Golden Boy, especially if you are maybe one of the guys that they either see a future with or someone they think they can promote, you're not going to necessarily get the best level of opposition to test yourself when you think you're ready for it. Munguia was dining out on a bunch of C and D list opposition for a while. And then obviously getting the Canelo fight, found out, okay, so the level I've been at hasn't been where I've needed to be. But because he always came with sort of no big airs and graces about him, it didn't really affect him that much. And so almost this is the opportunity